What's up, guys? It's me again. It's been a little while, but I've been busy. I'm still not used to this whole video thing, so I'm not ready for it to take over my life here. But I posted a Q&A the other day on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, @gbonnie, I'll post a link in the description. But I had a few people ask me about over and underexposing versus pushing and pulling film, and I actually got into a conversation with my friend Rashid, dope guy. I'll post his Instagram below too, and it kind of made me realize how confusing it could be, this topic, even with two people who knew what they were talking about. So I just wanted to make a quick video on explaining the difference between over and underexposing versus pushing and pulling your film, because stuff can get lost when you're talking about it. So I thought about the best way to go about this, and I figured it'd be kind of boring for me just in front of the camera talking to you. So I think I'm gonna have my camera on a tripod and draw some stuff up, so maybe it'll make more sense, because I'm a visual learner, and I'm assuming people on YouTube are probably visual learners as well. So let's do this. So what I got set up is just a piece of paper, and I got a Sharpie. So let's go over some stuff. So real quick, here is me with a camera, or you with a camera. I don't care. It could be you. So now, say you're taking a picture of, I don't know, a bush. Okay, wow, look at that beautiful bush. So I'm gonna go off the fact that most of you people who are looking at this video probably know a little bit about exposure triangle, shutter speed, ISO, aperture. So just to make it easy, a little easier, let's just say you're an aperture priority. So you're just, you're shooting your film in AV, living the dream, okay? Say you're shooting a roll of Portrait 400. So your ISO is gonna be, 400. And you set your camera to 400, and say to take a picture of this bush, it wants F, I don't forget, it's a little, whatever, we'll do, let's say it's, F28, and your shutter speed is 1/1000th. Just making up numbers here. So for you to properly expose this bush at 400 ISO, your camera's telling you, or your light meter, that you need to be shooting at f2.8 1/1000th of a second. Okay, simple enough. If you wanted to overexpose that and you didn't know anything, you would take this reading, see that it wants 1/1000th of a second, and you're in aperture priority, you want to leave at 2.8. So we're going to leave it at 2.8. So you're going to just be like, okay, I want one stop overexposed. I'll say no to this 1/1000th of a second, and I'll drop it to 1/500th of a second. That will properly overexpose that bush by one stop. You can do that for all your photos. It doesn't matter to me, but it just takes a little longer. You gotta expose for your 400, and then you have to adjust after the fact. If you're taking street stuff, or you are doing portrait work and you want to just be a little quicker and making the model wait, what you could do, what I do, is I tell my camera, I say, hey camera, I'm not shooting Portrait 400, I'm shooting at a 200 speed film. That doesn't exist. Portrait 200 does not exist, but that doesn't matter. I tell my camera that I want it to expose this photo of this bush at 200 ISO. So now what this camera is going to do, if I'm in aperture priority mode, which I am, and I want to be at f2.8, it's going to just read this bush and know that it needs more light for one stop. So it's going to give you 1/500th of a second automatically. So instead of, you reading for 400 and then overexposing yourself by changing the shutter speed, if you just set your camera or your light meter to, an ISO that's one stop above, then your camera or your light meter is going to do that work for you and, set that up to overexpose your image. I personally say that I shot my 400 film at 200. And people are like, oh, you pulled your film. No, I didn't pull my film. Basically, the only difference between, I shouldn't say the only, but the main difference between, technically, overexposing and pulling your film, or underexposing and pushing your film, is going to be the chemicals. So, where are we? Here we go. Here's me or you with our film. Okay, that's our film. We're giving it to the happy camera guy who's going to develop your film. Okay? When I shoot my film at 200, my Portra 400 at 200, I do not tell him. No communication. I say, hey, develop this film at 400. So he's going to do the normal work and develop my film at 400. In return, overexposing my 400 film at 200. Now say I told this guy, hey, I shot this film at 200, can you develop it at 200? Then this nice cameraman is going to pull my film and he's going to leave it in the chemicals at a different time. So then my film would be pulled. And the same thing goes for if you want to underexpose. So here we are again. Okay, yeah, here's a little camera. Cool, here's your bush. And now you're still doing f2.8, sorry, and 1/1000th of a second. But now you want to shoot your Portra 400 at 800. You want to underexpose this bush. You have this bush, you want to shoot at 800. Either what you're going to have to do is either, tell your camera, hey, I want this to be shot at 800, which will then change this to, I believe, 1/2000th of a second. Or you'd have to do what we did back here, where you have to go back and adjust. If you leave your camera at 400, you'd have to change that yourself. Or, like I said before, just have your camera read, or your light meter read, for the ISO that you want to do. So if you want to overexpose one stop, you'd shoot Portra 400 at 200. If you want to underexpose one stop, you would shoot Portra 400 at 800. I think that should be simple enough. I hope. So, and then, if you go to the cameraman, if you want to underexpose, you would tell him, hey, just develop this at 400. If you want to push your film, you'd say, hey, I shot this roll at 800. I want you to do that. So that's basically it. Just a little recap. Say you're shooting Portra 400 or any 400 film, just to make this easier, and you want to overexpose your film. You're going to set your camera or your light meter to 200, and you're going to have it just read for whatever that says, take your photos, and don't tell the cameraman anything. That's all you have to do. If you wanted to pull, then you'd have to take your pictures at 200 or a different ISO and tell him that that's what you shot it at, and then your film would be pulled. Same thing goes for underexposing. If you want to underexpose your photos, set your camera or your light meter to say, like again, Portra 400 to 800 for one stop underexposed. take your pictures and don't tell the camera guy anything. If you want to push your film, you're then going to take your pictures and tell your camera guy stuff. Say, hey, I shot this at 800, please develop it at 800, and then you'll have pushed film. So the main thing comes down to this. If you want to overexpose or underexpose, do not tell the developer. If you want to push or pull, then yes, you will tell the person developing your film. And that's the biggest difference. So, yeah, that's basically it. So basically, what I just told you guys about is underexposing, pushing, pulling, yada, yada, yada. Personally, I don't push, pull, or underexpose my color negatives. Basically, what the deal is with color negatives is they're the opposite of digital. So where digital retains detail in the shadows, color negatives retain detail in the highlights. So personally, just me, I always overexpose my film by one stop. Sometimes even 2 or 3 if it's sunny and I have that roll of film in my camera. I just know that I'll be able to get better quality images, and I can bring back some detail. Also, another thing that I didn't mention before is you can overexpose different amounts all on one roll of film. So say you're shooting Portrait 400 like we were talking about, and it's super sunny in the beginning of the day, so you shoot it at 100, and then it gets a little darker, so you shoot it at 200, and then it's a little darker again, so you shoot at 400. You can do that. You can shoot one roll of film, all different kinds of exposed, underexposed, overexposed, and be fine, because you're not telling them anything. They're just going to think it's 400 film, and that's going to cause it to be over or underexposed. If you want to push or pull, you cannot push or pull differently on a roll of film. So you couldn't say if you wanted to push your roll of Portrait 400 to 200, you couldn't shoot it at 100, 200, 400. Because it just doesn't work like that. It's going to be developed for 200. So those shots are going to be fine, but the other ones are probably going to be funky. I do, however, I do push all of my 400 speed black and white to 1600. So what that does for me is when you push black and white film, you actually just add more contrast. So I don't like shooting Tri-X or HP5 at box speed because they're a little too flat of an image. There's too much gray for me. So what pushing does for that, it allows me to add more contrast on the negative and in the photo without me having to mess with it as much in post. So what I normally used to do, I would just shoot at 400, develop it at 400, and then go in post and edit that. And I don't like to edit my film that much, so I found that when I shot at 1600 and pushed my film, so developed it for 1600, which added time, I believe it was double the amount of time, I got way more contrast in my black and white images, which is what I like. So that helps a lot. So personally, I overexpose all my color negative film, and I push all my black and white film to 1600 if I'm shooting 400 speed, which is all I do. So that's basically it. I hope that this helped and I didn't just confuse you more. I think it helped, but I also know a little bit what I'm talking about, I think. If you have any questions, you can always ask in this video or send me a DM on Instagram. I'm always happy to answer people's questions. So yeah, I hope this could be a help to you, because I wish I got this video when I was, messing around with film. But yeah, I'm hoping to make more videos. I know I want to show you guys how I scan my film, because I use my EOS R with Negative Lab Pro, and a lot of people think that's weird and have questions about that instead of using a scanner. So I'll do that hopefully this week or next week, and hopefully I can start doing more like vlogs, because I find them interesting. So we'll see about that. So I'll catch you guys on the next one, and see you later.